Gone but not forgotten. Lost Treasures of St. Louis. That's coming up next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. A new book by Reedy Press features some great photographs of Lost Treasures of St. Louis. Please welcome the author, Cameron Collins. Cameron, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Gone but not forgotten. That sort of sums it all up. Do you want to explain that, sort of the concept behind this?
Yeah, it's a walk down memory lane in St. Louis. Over 400 treasures, movie theaters, restaurants, buildings, architecture, media, that are no longer here in St. Louis, and it's not only a celebration of those lost treasures, but a way for people to look back and remember St. Louis in a different time.
When you say 400, there are actually something like 400 photographs also in the book, right?
Correct, yeah. We actually tried to get a photograph for just about every lost treasure in the book, and it actually turned out to be one of the most difficult parts of the project. But I'm really happy with how it came out.
And most of the photographs are old.
Yes.
Just about all of them, I guess.
Yes. So we have the treasures range. I even have a few in there that go back to the late 1800s. So places like the Missouri History Museum and Landmarks Association were very helpful in helping me get some of these photographs that were taken over 100 years ago.
Right. So is it true that maybe there'd be a lot of things in this book that I'll recognize and maybe some even a native St. Louisan would not be familiar with?
I purposely attempted to throw a few rarities in there. There's all the good stuff is in there, the Admiral, the Parkmore, but I wanted to make sure that I threw some gems in there that would surprise maybe a smaller part of the population.
And is it all about sort of appreciating history?
Yes, I would definitely, being a lover of St. Louis history that I am, I took great effort to tell the stories of many of them, of how they came to be and the impact that they made on St. Louis and the people that lived here.
Well, I'm sorry we can't share all 400 images with
that would take a long time.
With our viewers, but we picked out a couple, and I've also got some questions, personal questions for you, because it's interesting, you're not a native St. Louisan.
I am not, no.
And so for you to delve this deeply into the history, there's an interesting story there. Let's look at the first image from your book, Treasures of St. Louis. That happens to be the cover. It looks like an old, drive-in movie sign.
It does, and it is not based on a real, it's kind of, the designers took some elements of a few different signs and put it together, and I think they made a great cover.
All right, let's look at the first image that we have to share with our listeners, and it's the Ss Admiral.
Yes, the Admiral featured even in the introduction of the book, and if I were to rank the treasures in terms of all the people I interviewed who mentioned and got the great stories, the Admiral will be right up there at the top of the list.
That's one of those, I heard lots of stories from my parents.
Right, wonderful
It's a little
story.
before my time. It was docked on the riverfront when I was younger, but it didn't take excursions.
Yeah, and when I came here, it was a casino, and it was fascinating to learn about how it was a place for dancing, and wonderful, even the restrooms and the Admiral were these wonderful.
And in the introduction to your book, speaking of the Admiral, you mentioned that. You go back to 1979 and talk about problems they were having with the Admiral, and why did you choose to start the book with that?
I believe just because the Admiral, I wanted to pick a treasure that everybody knew. Everybody has, a memory from the Admiral, even if it's just going down and looking at it. And I thought it would be a great way to just bring everybody into the others.
I missed it because I always thought it looked like it was meant to go with the arch, the steel,
Exactly.
Which it wasn't. It was just a coincidence, but I always thought that looked great. Let's take a look at another image from the book, Lost Treasures of St. Louis. What's this?
Yeah, a ticket to a Walsh Stadium football game. And this stadium was located very close to where we are right now, and where SLU High School played football games, and also was a venue for midget car racing, and just a like a wonderful place for memories in St. Louis.
$1.25 for a weekly pass?
Yeah,
That's a good deal.
that's a good deal.
Let's go to the next one. The arena.
Of course, the arena. One of my earliest memories in living when I first moved to St. Louis was watching the thousands of people file through Dogtown to, witness the implosion of the arena. The place where, the Steamers played and where the Blues played. It's a special place for a lot of people.
And you've only been here since 1995,
Right.
which we'll talk about, but there was the big roller coaster next to it at one time, and
Yeah.
which burned down.
Forest Park Highlands.
Right, you know all about
also
that.
in the book.
Let's go to the next one.
Busch Stadium, of course, this was, I'm a huge baseball fan, and upon moving to St. Louis, had to go to Busch. And even with today's stadium is wonderful, but there's a lot of people who pine for the old cookie cutter stadium that, it once sat right next, to the current one.
And the Beatles played there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Super Jam, the other concerts in the 70s were a big memory for people, so.
I remember touring that back in the 60s when I was a kid. Let's take a look at another image from your book.
The Coronado Hotel, still standing in next to SLU. I believe, I'm not sure SLU may own the building now, but a famous old hotel that once, thrived down in that part of the city.
I don't recognize it. Does it not look like that today?
It does. It's just it's an angle that when you drive down Lindell, though, you should see it. It's right across from SLU.
Oh, okay. Let's talk a minute about Josh Stevens. He's the guy behind Reedy Press.
Yep.
And evidently Josh had the idea for this book many years before you got involved in the project.
Yes. I want to say, I don't know for sure, but I think about 7 years ago, this idea germinated in Josh's head. And he, there were some, starts and stops. And he finally found his guy about 2 years ago.
You mean you?
Meaning me. And I always joke that I think, I'd never written a book before. And I think I joke with people that Josh had to find somebody who didn't know what he's getting himself into because it was 2 years of a wild ride that I took on.
But a good ride.
It was a good ride. But there were nights where I did not rest well. So
Cried a little bit?
Cried a little bit. There were deadlines. I'll be perfectly honest, now that the book is done, but I was missing deadlines quite a bit. I didn't know what I was doing. It really took me a while to get my feet under me. But then everything just, I'm going to say even as early as a year ago, things started to click, and I figured it all out.
And your next one will become a lot quicker, probably.
I hope so. I hope Josh will let me do another one.
Let's look at some more images from the book, Lost Treasures of St. Louis. Cameron Collins is our guest. You said you're a baseball fan.
I am, yeah, and here, of course, Sportsman's Park, the St. Louis Browns. And I've always been fascinated with the idea that St. Louis, for over 50 years, had two professional baseball teams. I mean, what a wonderful, time it must have been on North Grand to, every day there was baseball being played. Right. And even though the Browns, they did make the World Series one year, but even though they weren't, as competitive as the Cardinals, they're a big part of St. Louis's history.
You don't know who they are, do you?
The little guy's got to be Eddie Goodell, right? I think when the famous event when he was sent up to bat and walked on 4 pitches. But I don't know who the other players are.
All right, let's go to the next one. Famous bar in Clayton, right?
Famous bar, yeah. And the retail section of the book features, of course, the big three. The famous bar downtown and Six Baron Fuller and Scruggs. But the county locations like this one, the Southtown location, which was on Kings Highway, really memorable for people as well.
I don't know if this is true or not, but my mom was a graduate of Clayton High School, class of '48, and I believe the building is where this stands now. I think the school was there before this.
This building is still standing.
Oh, right, but I think Clayton High School, there was a Clayton High School there
before,
really?
Oh,
I think.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Don't quote me. Let's go to the next image. Now, I remember that.
Yeah, the Floating McDonald's. It's funny, I've had such a kick with the Floating McDonald's because so many people remember it for great memories, but so many people have also told me that they just did not care for. They thought it was overpriced. It was you had the smell of the river along with your hamburger, and so it's been that was a great thing about the book is there were certain treasures where some people were like I remember that place well. It wasn't my favorite. But, so,
I never set foot on there. But that's an interesting story to hear.
Yeah.
Let's see another image.
Yeah, of course, the goldenrod, of course, the excursion boats like the Admiral get a big place in the book. It's today, I wish there were boats on the riverfront.
I think the same thing. I remember when I was young, there was also like the Becky Thatcher, and there were 3 or 4 boats when I was a kid that were always down there. I miss that.
Yeah, and there was even the inaugural, which was, I believe it was like a minesweeper, that was down there. And,
yeah.
Also in the book, but yeah, that was a source of entertainment for people was to go down to the riverfront and.
Well, St. Louis wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the river.
Of course,
yeah, maybe
exactly.
We'll get some boats down there again someday.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next image. Oh yes.
Yeah, Irv's Grill. This is one of those treasures. One of the most difficult photographs to find, but this
looks like it's in rough shape.
Right. This was in rough shape. But just a famous place.
Where exactly was that?
That was near the Missouri Botanical Garden, right down there near. It's a parking lot now, but the place to go late at night after the bars closed. You'd
Cheeseburgers,
go
that kind of.
slingers and that kind of stuff. So
Let's look at another one.
Oh, the Marquette Hotel, which is actually. Also a parking lot now, but stood next at the corner of 18th and Washington downtown. Just a beautiful architectural treasure that we lost. I believe it was torn down in the 1980s.
Let's take a look at one more before we take our break.
One of my favorite sections of the book are the St. Louis Zoo animals. This is Miss Jim, the St. Louis Zoo's very first elephant, who gave rides to thousands of people, but also along with Siegfried the walrus and Phil the gorilla.
My dad used to talk about Phil the gorilla.
Phil the gorilla, he was a character. He's become like the icon of my book. I talk about him a lot. He's such a character and drank orange soda and.
How big was Phil? Do you remember?
Yeah, when Phil arrived at the zoo, I want to say he was something like 37 pounds, and when he died, he was over 700 pounds.
And he was a big draw there for years and years.
He was a big draw there, yeah.
Huh. Lost Treasures of St. Louis, that's our topic today, and we're going to take this short break, and we'll be right back.
Did you know parking over tall, dry grass can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires. When they test you, stand firm and move only when you hear the seatbelt click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. Lost Treasures of St. Louis is a new book from Reedy Press, and we're spending some time with its author, Cameron Collins. And you're a photographer by trade, right?
I have a degree in fine art photography, along with American history, so my two, maybe I can tell my parents all that tuition paid off. Both majors came together in one project
Wish
here.
I could tell my parents that.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are more than something like 400 photographs. And did they just come from everywhere? How big a challenge was it to find sometimes 60-year-old photographs?
It was a monumental challenge, and it was funny because when I first handed in the first draft of the manuscript, but the first draft, and Josh Stevens, you mentioned, he said, how's the photograph side of things coming? And I said, I haven't started that yet. And I could see his skin kind of go pale. And then I learned that with books like this, that's often the biggest hurdle. And it got to the point where, while big organizations like the History Museum and Landmarks helped me out, it was emailing people right out of the blue. Like I'd find an image online, and then I'd work to try to find the original photographer to give them credit in the book.
So these are iconic places. Some of them we'll all recognize, even a native St. Louis, and might not recognize everything because they're less known or so long ago.
Yes,
So.
There are some nuggets in there and some fun stories, things like treasures like the social evil hospital that once stood on.
I just read that this morning here. I had no idea there was
Yeah.
legalized prostitution in St.
Yeah.
Louis for a year or something.
Yeah, and there was a hospital where Sublet Park is today, where prostitutes were treated during that experiment. It didn't go well, but it was a wonderful structure. And so that and other, like the St. Louis Motordrome was another one that I threw in the book. People who are going to find some good stuff in this book.
Let's look at some more images from the book, Lost Treasures of St. Louis.
Noah's Ark, and I'm glad you showed this image. I do focus on St. Louis City in the book heavily, but I had to throw in some good ones like this one that was in St. Charles, fiberglass animals outside, and what a unique place to go and eat.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one.
Another image just a great image. The Admiral comes through again.
That's on the Admiral?
This is on the Admiral, and just a great image that.
Do you know the story behind that? Or?
No, nothing other than.
Nuns out for a cruise, I guess.
Nuns out for a cruise. Everybody went on the Admiral.
Let's move along.
I love the departments. One of the great talking to everybody, and you ask people about Schnucks, and so many people remember Bettendorf's, which was.
See, I don't.
Yeah, but before Bettendorf's was Raps, Fred Raps. So this.
Was that a one store?
No, it was a chain, and it was the progression of grocery stores in St. Louis to get to the point where
was that 1940s or something?
that's probably 1950s. Yeah. Yep. More. This one is the President, another excursion boat. Once again, a lot of focus in the book on the excursion boats. The Green Parrot in Kirkwood.
That one I don't know.
Yeah, this was in I loved talking to people about the fried chicken wars in St. Louis.
Fried chicken wars.
Yeah, like even today, Hodak's on Gravois, there's a lot of people who will tell you that, Hodak's wasn't as good as Romines, and Romines wasn't as good as Dohacks, and there are just so many. One of my favorites, Golden Fried Chicken Loaf, which was on Del Mar.
I didn't know there was such a thing as bad fried chicken.
Yeah, I know, but people have it was fun to just listen to people tell me what their favorite chicken was around town.
Let's go to the next image.
Trader Vic's, Polynesian Paradise on the riverfront in St. Louis, in the Bel Air Motel. This was actually a chain, and there are still a few locations open in California,
Really?
I believe, but the St. Louis location has been gone for, maybe I think it closed in the 1980s. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Looks neat.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites. Another kind of obscure treasure that most people may not know. This is Schneider's Beer Garden that was at the corner of Mississippi and Choteau.
That's right around Lafayette Park?
Yeah, near it.
Lafayette Square?
Yep, it's right across the street from Vin de Sette.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Vin de Sette was part of Joseph Schneider's brewery back in the 1870s. Vin de Sette was built later, but or the building where Vin de Set is. But this was a beer garden in St. Louis that could hold up to 10,000 beer drinkers at once. And, you know, back to the days when St. Louis not only had breweries all over the place, but beer gardens where people would, the rich German heritage and history in St. Louis, where they would come and, you know, listen to traditional music and theater. And
Beer is still popular here.
it is still, and actually it's such an exciting time to be a beer drinker in St. Louis, because there's as many breweries now as there ever have been.
Right. Let's look at the next one.
Oh, more. This is the St. Paul.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, there's a couple obscure ones in there as well. So
Let's move ahead.
yeah, this is just a general. You know, streetcars are a wonderful memory for a lot of St. Louisans.
Do we know what intersection that is?
I believe, I don't know off the top of my head, but you know, so many memories of taking the streetcars. You know,
I think that whole trolley line they're doing in the U City, you know, to the History Museum and all that's kind of cool.
yeah, and I guess it's been delayed again.
Yeah.
I've read, but yeah,
Oh, wow, but it'll get here.
it'll get here.
Let's go to the next image from the book.
I made sure to put a lot of recent treasures as well, street side records, you know, retail. I mean, when I came to St. Louis, this was where I went and bought my CDs. But there's also other, like Webster Records is in the book.
I want to ask you about something else that you do just for a second. You evidently do a blog. You were mentioning beer a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's sort of is it a beer drinker's blog or what is it?
It is, well, sort of. It's called Distilled History, and I write about St. Louis history, and I focus on, as I write my topic, research my topic, I will connect it to alcohol in some way. Like I'll have, but I write a lot about beer history in St. Louis and cocktail history in St. Louis.
It must be a rough job.
Yeah. But, you know, and then, or even if I just want to celebrate a particular person from St. Louis's past, I'll go and find a bar that I can maybe stands now on where they once lived or something like that. It's a fun way to give a little twist to St. Louis's past.
How do we find that blog?
Distilledhistory.com, just Google Distilled History or Cameron Collins, and it should
Do
come
you add
up.
to that regularly or?
Now that the book is done, I'm trying hard to get posts out, but my posts are long and heavily researched. So, but you know, I'm trying to get one out once every couple weeks now.
Well, could you give me maybe an idea of a recent one you did that
Sure.
was of interest to you?
Yeah, I just 2 posts ago I wrote about the 3 water towers in St. Louis: the Compton Tower, the Bissell Tower, and the Grand Tower. Those should interest people. And also I wrote about one of the lost treasures, the Southern Hotel in downtown St. Louis that burned in 1877, and a fireman named Phelim O'Toole saved perhaps as many as 15 people from certain death by climbing up bed sheets into windows. So there's some great tales in St. Louis, and I really try to kind of uncover some of the hidden history of the city.
Let's take a look at another image from your book, Lost Treasures of St. Louis.
Oh, the Orient, which is one of the, it could be the first Chinese restaurant, and I can't remember if it's the first, but early Chinese restaurant in St. Louis. And, you know, people told me interesting stories about this place, such as you actually would be served bread at this restaurant, and that's not something that's common today in Chinese places. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm a descendant of a long line of Germans from St. Louis, and I read in your book, and I didn't even realize this, I couldn't believe it, that there are no authentic German restaurants in St. Louis now?
Well, it's, you know, definitely, like the Feasting Fox is still here, but there are the people who really helped me with the German restaurants, and you know, with the Bavarian Inn and the Black Forest and so forth. Like, but you know, so I do have a close friend of mine who was a German teacher at Roosevelt High School for years. And he goes to Illinois now for his German food. It's, you know,
because at one time, I guess the Germans were I guess, the largest immigrants here at one time.
By far,
Yeah.
and you know, like we still have Dutchtown and Bevo Mill just opened back up, so you know, and that's actually, I should have given them a call out as well because they're back. But yeah, St. Louis, South St. Louis was rich with German heritage, and
Cameron, we've just got a couple of minutes left, but one thing I think it's interesting is that you've written this book. It seems like you'd be a native St. Louis, and you're not. You've been here since 1995, I think.
Correct.
You're originally from upstate New York.
Yes.
And I guess came here for a job and never left, but did you intend to stay?
no, I didn't. I came here when I graduated from college. My best friend was from St. Louis. I had nowhere to go because my parents wouldn't let me come home, and
Was it something that you had done? Or?
they just said that they had done their job, and I had to go out and figure things out on my own. I was really angry about this at the time, but they were right, and I had nowhere to go. I had no money, and so I came to St. Louis. I came here and we got a big house, and it was cheap to live here, and slowly. You know, like the roots started sinking into the ground, and here I still am.
Do people tease you because, you know, you've only been here 22 years, so you're not really a St. Louisan?
Right, and I'm not really a St. Louisan. I still consider, like myself, an upstate New Yorker. And but I think St. Louisans they've gotten used to me. I think they're happy to have me around. So.
But just in a few seconds, but you love St. Louis, why?
St. Louis, I love St. Louis. It has one of the richest histories of any American city. It's up there ranked with New York, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. St. Louis has a story to tell that is unlike any other.
Well, you do a really good job telling this story, too.
Thank you.
Lost Treasures of St. Louis. It's from Reedy Press. Cameron Collins is our guest. You can go to reedypress.com or probably at all the local bookstores.
Amazon, the local bookstores, also on my blog, Distilled History.
Anything next for you that we should know about?
Well, Josh Stevens is pitching me ideas, but I'm taking a break for a little while before I get into the next stuff.
Okay,
So
but probably some more beer drinking blogs.
more beer drinking and blogging is going to happen.
Cameron, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoy your book. And thank you for watching. Join us next time on City Corner.